As a reminder, the call is being recorded today for public record. My name is Landon Farrig. I am staff to the Strategic Energy Investment Advisory Board. Today, our Chief of Staff will be filling in for Director Pinsky, providing a priorities update for the agency. We're going to follow that with James Cobb, our Division Director of Finance and Administration, for recent RGGI results and the CEF account outlook. After that, Eric Hoffman, our Division Director of Energy Programs, will discuss a couple new programs and some energy programs outlook. At that time, we'll take questions from board members, and we'll have an opportunity for board member discussion regarding the two presentations or any other matters they wish to discuss. Once the board member discussion has concluded, we'll have an opportunity for public comment, which I will lead at that time. And our goal is to close out the meeting by the end of 2:30 p.m. And with that, Jen, I will turn it over to you.
All righty, great. Thank you so much. It's my real pleasure to be here with y'all this afternoon on behalf of the Maryland Energy Administration Director Pinsky, who unfortunately was unable to join us. As Landon said, my name is Jen Aosa, and I am the Chief of Staff for the Maryland Energy Administration. As most of you likely know, under the current administration of Maryland Governor Wes Moore, the Maryland Energy Administration's mission and vision have shifted. The agency has pivoted away from incentives for fossil fuels, instead focusing our efforts on clean, emissions-free energy resources. In fact, MEA's mission is to promote clean, affordable, reliable energy and energy-related greenhouse gas emissions reductions to benefit all Marylanders in a just and equitable manner. Our agency operates with a strong commitment to equity. The Federal Justice 40 principles, as well as our governor's own priority to leave no one behind, defines our approach. As such, our technical and financial assistance programs increasingly aim to help underserved and overburdened communities across Maryland. I'm pleased to share that the 2023 Strategic Energy Investment Fund report is now available on the Maryland Energy Administration website, and my colleague Gary will be providing a link in the comments to that report. As we're looking forward, the Maryland Energy Administration's budget has roughly doubled from the last fiscal year to our current annual budget of approximately $200 million. This figure will soon increase with the addition of Governor Moore's $90 million down payment for implementation of the state's climate action plan, and it will increase again as the Federal Inflation Reduction Act rebates come online in calendar year 2025. While we understand there are some who are concerned regarding possible implications of the federal election on our climate-related programs here in Maryland, I can say two things. One, we will not know for some time whether there is a material impact on any of the Maryland Energy Administration's federal funds. And two, we do know that under this administration in Maryland, we will continue to deliver on our mission toward cleaner energy and emissions cuts across Maryland. As Mr. Jimmy Cobb will discuss in a bit, MEA's revenues remain healthy, permitting us as an agency to continue the work we do to benefit all Marylanders. These funds represent an incredible opportunity for us to expand the reach of clean energy and energy efficiency assistance to more schools, local jurisdictions, and communities across Maryland. The Maryland Energy Administration's priorities remain clear. We are aligning all of our programmatic work in three key ways. One, we're looking for greenhouse gas emissions reductions, focusing where we can achieve the greatest greenhouse gas reductions, leveraging the Strategic Energy Investment Fund to advance our climate goals. Two, we're focused on affordability. Energy efficiency improvements can yield not only energy savings, but cost savings for Marylanders who need it most. And three, we're focused on access and equity. We want to know how we can better reach residents and communities that have unfortunately been underserved and overburdened. We want to know how we can partner with service providers and other organizations already working within these geographies. And finally, as recent revenues have increased, these have created some additional needs for the agency as well. In order to disperse these additional funds in an equitable and expeditious manner and maintain a high level of customer service, the Maryland Energy Administration has added new staff. First, we've added 2 new program managers to focus entirely on the Federal Inflation Reduction Act rebates. While not specifically CEF funded, these 2 rebate programs, the Homes Residential Energy Efficiency Rebates and the High Efficiency Electric Home Rebate Programs, will provide an important source of funding for residents across Maryland who have not previously had access to electrification or energy efficiency assistance. We have also hired 2 additional key staff in our programs division, one to focus on implementation and ways that MEA can streamline our processes and modernize our grant applications and interactions with our grantees. The second position focused on increasing engagement across stakeholders and communities and building strategic partnerships with other state agencies and external organizations. Moving forward, MEA is very well positioned and dedicated to administering the Strategic Energy Investment Fund as effectively and efficiently as possible. We certainly appreciate all of you who have joined us here today, and we look forward to a robust conversation. Thank you so much, and I'll now turn it over to Mr. James Cobb, MEA's Director of Finance and Administration.
Thanks, Jen. I think my camera's coming up at some point. Well, I'll keep talking. There it is. Okay. I wish I was there with Christmas stuff. Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. As Jen said, welcome. I will give you all a brief overview. We'll start with the most recent RGGI auction, which happened last Wednesday. The numbers that came up for overall, the total was $319.7 million for all the states that are a part of the RGGI auctions. Maryland's revenue portion of that was $55.8 million. It was the 4th highest revenue from an auction since we've had over the last 4. Now, that is a decline from the last couple of auctions. So we're not sure if auction 65, the one that happened back in September, was the primary. So I will now share slides to go over where we are overall. I just kind of want to give people an overview of what happened with the auction last week. And so, let's see. Love technology. And so, as I said, so we had our fourth highest revenue. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
All right, good. Overall, the state of Maryland has generated $1.4 billion in RGGI revenue for all 66 auctions that have transpired. So now we'll go through where we stand currently. Of course, the CEIF was created under legislative mandate. So some of these slides for people that have been here before are just repetitive. For anybody that's new, it's kind of an update of where the revenue comes from for the CEIF. It comes from the RGGI revenue, auctions. It also comes from the Renewable Portfolio Standard, alternative compliance payments, and under the Public Service Commission orders. So our revenue is generated through there, as well as we do receive interest income. So here are the statutes that mandate where we are. The Maryland Department of the Environment provides the management oversight of the auction program and allowances. MEA, we're responsible for administering the funds under the CEIF. We have 3 prime directives in administering it. Ensure that the resources are utilized only to carry out the purposes of the program. It cannot be used for the general obligations of the government. We are special funded. Our revenue is not a part of the general fund of the state of Maryland. It cannot be used to offset any general obligations of the state. And fund expenditures can only be made by an appropriation or a budget amendment. Our RGGI revenue is allocated in 5 different places. Department of Human Services for for resident assistance, for energy assistance programs. They get 50% of all revenue. Then you have, for low and moderate income, they get 10% of our revenue. And then you also get, for renewable energy, they get 20%, and energy efficiency for all other purposes get 10%. And administration, which is MEA, to run the program, gets 10%. However, we are capped at $7.5 million per year out of the 10%. And anything above that, we have the authority of allocating to other programs and other areas as needed. So the RGGI auctions happen quarterly. They happen in March, June, September, and December. As I said, we just had our last one for calendar year 24 on December 6th, December 4th, I'm sorry, last Wednesday. I'm not sure of the dates for calendar year 25 as of yet, but the first one will happen sometime in March. If that's when it's supposed to be scheduled. Again, it's March, June, September, and December. Here's how, what goes into making up the revenue. This is not set by MEA. We just, again, manage and monitor the funds and monitor all the expenditures of it. All of these are set by RGGI. So again, here, as I said, the last auction was December 4th. That was a 66 auction for RGGI. The total allowances that were sold were $15.9 million. The price per auction, price per allowance was $20.05. which is the third highest since the beginning of the auctions. And again, as I stated earlier, the total auction proceeds was $319 million. The part for Maryland was 55.8. There were no cost containment reserve allowances sold. There are no more available for 24. Not sure if there'll be any available for 25 at this point. So here's a history of the last several auctions, last 5, just to kind of refresh people's memory. And all this information is available online. But again, the allowances sold, the last 3 was consistent. That's the most that was allowable to be sold. The only thing that changed was the price per allowance. The auction 64 back in June was at $21.03. Auction 65 was at $25.75, and auction 66 was at $20.05. So you can see since last year this time, last December, which was auction 63, it was $16. So it's gone up $4 per allowance, which, but they also had cost containment reserves that were eligible to be sold. So even though it says our RGGI revenue was higher, $68 million, but just on the allowances, it's lower from last year. It's increased from that. So here's 24, our RGGI proceeds from 24, tier 1 ACP, 56 million. And again, as I said, another place where we get a lot of interest, obviously right now, because we have a very high fund balance because of the increase in RGGI revenue, as well as the increase in ACP and RPS. We earned about a little over $30 million in 24. For 25, these are estimates because we are only at halfway through fiscal year 25, but we are projected to do $201 million in RGGI proceeds. And again, the ACP, the tier 1 ACP, that doesn't happen until April. So it's real challenging to predict what will come in April in fiscal year 25. So we try and project conservatively. And again, the fund interest, we're hoping it stays consistent because we're managing our funds very well. Here are the status of the funds for the CEF. We have almost $1 billion as of June 30th, or well, let's just say for fiscal year as of July 1. In grants and contracts, we had a little over $204 million encumbered from prior years. We will encumber some of the programs and grants that we have in place take more than a year because they're capital projects, but we have to keep the funds reserved or encumbered to make sure that people don't think, oh, you all have extra money we can use. So we have to make sure that we track that and keep that encumbered. So the available fund balance for this fiscal year was $734 million. Revenue projection, we're projecting is $376 million, and our FY25 appropriation is $293 million. So our projected funds at the end of the year should be $774 million, assuming everything goes well. And here's a comparison for the use of the CEF funds. 24 is actual because we have closed 24. 25 is an appropriation. There could be some adjustments to show where our funds are going to other state agencies to support clean energy and the governor's initiatives. And again, all our funds are only for clean energy and the initiatives of the government. And so our 25 budget is where we are is, for administration, 7.1 million. As I said, we're capped at 7.5. So we cannot, even though the 10% of RGGI revenue would be higher than that, we get a lot of offsets for federal funds that come in and other funds of that nature. We have 11.5 million budgeted for energy efficiency for low to moderate income. We have 15.5 million budgeted for energy efficiency for all other sectors, and 154.5 million for renewable energy and clean energy programs in our current year budget. Now, at 26, we're still in the process of developing it and submitting it to the legislature, so we don't really know yet what those numbers will look like. So when we have our next meeting, we'll have an updated number for that. And you can scan and see and learn more about our programs that we have. And I believe that is it for me. So with
Jimmy,
that,
we'll pause to take questions after Eric's presentation.
I'll
Mr.
pass on.
Kaufman, do you want to kick us off with MEA programs updates?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. So let's see. A little bit of technology. I mean, most of you by now are familiar from previous discussions, but for those joining us for the first time, MEA's mission and Chief of Staff, I also have touched on this, is promote clean, affordable, reliable energy and energy-related greenhouse gas reductions to benefit Marylanders in a just and equitable manner. And the reason I want to do this recap on the mission is because it ties to the theory of how we are developing, deploying our programs, working with communities to increase adoption and ensuring that no one gets left behind as we move forward in transitioning Maryland to some very robust clean energy and environmental goals. And this is the biggest program portfolio this year that we have ever launched. Now, in terms of program focus for this fiscal year, we're scaling our programs to align with the Climate Solutions Now Act and the administration's energy goals. And what this means in practice is we are really focused on ensuring that we have programs that operate at scale, including many projects that are benefiting at a community scale. I'll touch on a few examples, and that we are ensuring that our programs can address geographic equity, social equity, and environmental justice. And also, we also are looking at programs in terms of market transformation. How can we show what is possible and what we can get done and what changes we can drive by investing these funds in clean energy projects across our communities and to help our residents and our businesses. Aligning programs to address equitable access, is how do we make our programs more accessible, make them easier to access, helping to improve awareness on the benefits and the outcomes that this funding can achieve. And then how do we use that to also address energy affordability? We have, a lot of our programs are focused on providing benefits and energy efficiency improvements and access to solar for our most economically vulnerable Marylanders. And we also have programs that help reduce the cost or energy savings to businesses and those who are, keep the bottom line, and many of whom are employing people throughout our communities. Increasing engagement and partnerships is, we're really focused this year on engaging others in our work. Those who know, those trusted intermediaries who can help educate and engage in the program offerings we have as an agency and involve the broad Maryland community in our collective work. We continue to leverage federal funds and work to bring those into our portfolio and to be able to use those sort of strategically in both what we're doing with SEEF, but also in what we're doing with those federal funds. And so it works together as a cohesive strategy. And then, of course, implementing Governor Moore's climate down payment. So I mentioned engaging others in our work. And this is an area where we are continuing to find ways to go out and get feedback from all parts of Maryland, all sectors, all parties may be interested in how we can leverage the SEEF to get both the environmental and community benefits we're collectively trying to achieve. And so we have implemented a number of things this year. Is one, we have issued a number of requests for information, posing questions to the community on, for example, federal Inflation Reduction homes and and electrification rebates is what elements of the program should be incorporate. One of the climate down payment programs is our equitable community EVSE program, where we ask, and one of the goals of that program is to get EV charging into multifamily communities or accessible to multifamily communities. So we ask for feedback on what elements of the program and the challenges and barriers that those communities are facing, so we can design a program to meet the needs of our audience. Most of our programs have a notice of intent, and notice of intent is sort of a little bit narrower than RFI. And notice of intent is give a signal as to what's coming in the program, help gain and start to build up interest, but also they typically have an open-ended opportunity for any feedback before we do the actual formal launch of the funding opportunity announcement, which essentially opens the gates to people applying for the fundings. And then we are increasingly, and this comes back to one of the elements that Chief of Staff Aosis touched on, is one of the roles we've brought into the agency is Additional Assistant Division Director to focus on partnership building, which is going to require focused discussions with advocates and community groups. Who do we need to talk to understand how we can better align our programs? We also have incorporated office hours into many of our programs. So there's a standing time. The program manager is available to answer questions. We continue to do virtual public meetings. And then we've also started engaging others in helping us get the word out. One of the interesting examples is we actually have engaged a community liaison from the IRS in many of our webinars, so that they could help educate on the various federal tax credits available, so that those can be used, so we can build awareness and be able to, leverage those dollars. We have brought in groups working in the education sector to help promote our schools and school decarbonization programs. So we're really looking to bring, those external experts as well to help us get the word out and get information enhanced, so that the community we're trying to serve can apply for the programs and has guidance and information. Okay, in terms of new programs, everyone is always very interested in new programs. And any given year, we have around 20 programs. I think this year we have the most ever. Not in dollar scales, but number of programs. But our Maryland RISE program. This is a program funded by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And the program is focused on addressing resiliency in the electric distribution system. And the funding is available to utilities and others, so they can apply and get funding to be able to upgrade elements of the grid to focus on enabling more clean energy. It can't fund generation, but it can fund the efforts to enable more clean energy, addressing some of those grid side barriers, build resiliency, and to help protect our communities from power outages, and then and also to help benefit those frontline communities that are maybe disproportionately impacted by impacts and outages from a variety of sources. The electric school bus grant program, we're finalizing the branding on that, but it is a program where it's another one of Governor Moore's down payment programs. We're about $17 million to get zero emission electric school buses in schools. Our commercial solar grant program, This was the successor to the former commercial clean energy rebate program. We restructured it as a grant program, increased the incentives, particularly to benefit projects implemented by minority and veterans-owned small businesses. And that program is at 10 million, and we already have well over $5 million of applications in hand, with more coming in every day. One of the elements of our program portfolio is helping to get clean energy into higher education institutions, and this is one that came from one of Governor Moore's budget priorities. And in this program, we are providing grants to higher education institutions. It could be 4-year, could be community college, and those grants and they're competitive, but those grants can provide funding for a couple of things. One is doing campus-wide clean energy planning. So we can start to identify where the projects are needed, how can actually get that campus towards greater adoption of clean energy. And that is actually a requirement of the program to access then capital funds for actually funding, offsetting the cost of those clean energy installations. And then we added some funds to it as well to allow fellowships, as well as incorporation of clean energy into curriculum. So it allows us to sort of take that tremendous opportunity and across all those areas to look at how we can work with our higher education institutions to incorporate clean energy and not only physically reduce, generate clean energy, but also to be able to engage your students and their communities and be able to help create that next generation of clean energy professionals. And then I'll talk a little more detail about this one, the Maryland Solar Access Program. This program succeeds the former residential clean energy rebate program. And this program is designed a little differently in that it provides a greater incentive per kW of solar installed and for the total system, but it also is means tested. It's designed 150% of a median income, and it's designed to get greater incentives to those who face the greater economic challenges to accessing solar. And this program is expected in January. This is also our pilot program for modernizing how we interact in terms of our application process for our high volume programs that I also anticipate will inform our broader portfolio programs as well. And so this program will have online application. It'll be streamlined. It'll be better integrated with our systems. It will we will always have a paper option for cases where it's needed, but this will the preferred option. The preferred path here is electronic to make it streamlined for everyone. Help make it easier to administer, but also make it easier. Most importantly, make it easier for people to interact with, and be able to incorporate all the education with it, etc. And it's also structured on, instead of being a rebate where someone implements their project and where they then come and file for rebate, and if there's funding available, they get it. If the funding's exhausted, as it has been in some previous years, they may not, and they may go on a wait list for a future year. Well, we've changed that. This program is structured on a reserve and claim basis, where before someone implements their solar project, they apply for the funds. They meet all the program criteria. They will then, you get that funding reserved, and then when they complete their project within the time frame allowed by the program, they claim the funds so that they have certainty that when they start their project, they're going to get their incentive. It also allows third-party applications for solar power purchase agreements, and there is a participating provider provider registration that also includes a commitment by the providers participating in the program to adhere to consumer protections, which we currently have out for feedback right now as part of an RFI, and we have a draft out there as well. And we are still we had encouraged feedback by the 9th, but we are still accepting feedback if anyone would like to provide us comments. So some of our returning programs, there's definitely some fan favorites here. Our Decarbonizing Public Schools program, and as a quick recap, that program provides funding for building capacity, energy management capacity in public schools. It provides funding for solar on new and existing public schools. It provides funding for energy efficiency improvements and electrification. But it also it provides significant grants for developing net zero public schools. And that gives us an opportunity, especially when you're dealing with a redesign or a new school, get in there when it's most effective to be able to get those schools to be able to embrace net zero principles and to be able to get funding to address the incremental cost. On that program, we had an incredible turnout last year. And we expect, based on early feedback, similar or greater this year. And it's sitting at $38.8 million. It is, I believe, our single biggest program. Energy Efficiency Equity, formerly known as the Low to Moderate Income Energy Efficiency Program, continues into this year. That is a key program for addressing the energy burdens for those Marylanders who face some of the greatest income challenges. We work through local governments and nonprofits to be able to deploy those, get those funds in their hands so that they can go out and work with the community to improve the energy efficiency of single-family homes, multifamily, and community-serving buildings as well. It's peer program or closely aligned program is the Solar Energy Equity Program, which then for homes that have been retrofitted can get funding, or that will be retrofitted, which is a change this year to allow it to be done at once, can get funding for funding. Yeah, the funding actually goes similar to the Energy Efficiency Equity Program, does go through the nonprofits and the local governments, but then that they can then deploy those funds to be able to put solar in homes after they've received energy efficiency. And so this is a great program to be able to address, again, energy burdens and ensure equitable access to clean energy. The medium duty and heavy duty zero emission vehicle grant. This is one where we provide we provide funding in the form of competitive grants for zero emission heavy duty, medium duty vehicles, think tractor trailers, think box trucks, think buses. We did shear off the school bus program this year because it's being funded separately out of the Governor Moore's climate down payment. This program also can provide funding for off-road zero emission vehicles, and we actually saw a significant turnout from the agricultural sector last year. A lot of wineries were looking for funding for some of their electric agricultural equipment. The Open Innovation Program, this is our program obviously for innovation, but also to be sort of that venue for things that don't fit in our other programs. Are there other efforts that can really address, driving down greenhouse gas emissions, helping to implement clean energy projects, address equity that are not covered by our other program portfolio or other parts of our program portfolio, or where it's all brought together and integrated in a way where that it's more effective than any combination of our existing programs could do. So this is our sort of our catch-all, and continues to be a very popular program where we're seeing a lot of innovation actually can really inform future programs, and a lot of opportunities to work with community groups. We funded a redevelopment project last year in Baltimore that's looking at passive houses in the Baltimore area, and also incorporating clean energy and electric vehicle charging and a microgrid. So it's sort of that has the opportunity to be a vehicle for funding these sort of big community impact programs. And with that, the QR code to our full portfolio of programs, and be glad to answer any questions. Landon, back to you.
Thanks, Eric, for that thorough overview. At this time, I would like to invite any members of the Strategic Energy Investment Advisory Board to open up the discussion with questions or comments.
My name is Maurice. Can I speak?
Please, by all means, Maurice. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. First of all, let me use this opportunity to thank Jane Ayosa and the director for your leadership, and to you, Landon, and Eric Kaufman for a great presentation.
Thank you.
I was going through an article written by Gary Collins, and it says Marylanders brace for skyrocketing energy costs in 2025 as fossil fuel power plants close. And this is by Fox 45 News in Baltimore, dated August 15th, 2024. And this article, it opens that Baltimore Gas and Electric will increase monthly billings to customers, residential customers, in Maryland by at least $18 starting from June 2025. And then PEPCO also, according to this article, is said that their Maryland residents will have an increase of almost $11 on their electric bills. So I know that this agency does a great job of providing bill assistance to the low-income folks. And this is, if this continues like this, even with all the efforts made to give consumer protection, how do we see the program going towards improving the more Marylanders that might be impacted? Even though, I mean, the article actually really has some good reasons for the increases. I mean, said things about wholesale energy pricing, things like outdated grid, green energy policies, and increase in energy demand. So some of these, are all interrelated. So I was wondering, is there a way, is there actually within the Public Service Commission a database of what actually consumers in Maryland pay per zip code? And if so, are we looking at those folks and what they're paying and their income levels when we are actually giving this assistance? Or is the assistance itself by demand, by ask and receive approach? My second other question is, we are informed on the SEIF that we have 4 meetings within the regions of the state. Do we have a schedule for those public input meetings for 2025? Thank you so much, sir.
So I lost you just a little bit there at the end. You asked about scheduled meetings for 2025 for which body?
Yeah, for 2025 for the 4 regions. I think in our mandate, it said that through the Senate Bill 52, 2019, that MEEA shall hold at least 4 public meetings across the state in the eastern, southern, central, and western parts of the state. So I was wondering whether we have a standing schedule for these meetings so that those that, people like the residential consumers, to which my name has been attached to, can come to these meetings and actually share their feelings with the MEEA and how they're receiving your assistance publicly. And
Certainly. Well, let's start with the second question. So the statutory requirement was a one-time requirement. I believe you said in 2019. That sounds fairly accurate. However, I'm going to tap Eric here. Eric, I think we're looking to expand our kind of regional approach to engagement. Is that accurate?
And absolutely. And while we're trying to figure, working on how best to do it and who our partners are, we want to create more, as I said in one of my slides, we want to create more venues for ongoing feedback beyond this advisory board meeting. And so we're looking at how to work regionally. We actually just brought on this week a new community energy program manager, and also looking to start doing those focused program meetings about programs and needs. So this is definitely on our minds. It's something we want to do more, and we are always very open to suggestions on the best venues for doing that.
And as to the first question regarding certain cost increases before the Public Service Commission, I would say that MEA is highly engaged there. at the Public Service Commission in these rate cases in a manner in which historically we have not. So we've been increasing our presence as an agency there and taking part in those rate cases. I think you're referring to an Office of People's Counsel report when it came to the increase in distribution charges of certain utilities. So the Maryland Energy Administration has been, fighting the good fight before the Public Service Commission. On the program side, on the Strategic Energy Investment Fund administration side of things, I'm going to turn it back to Eric once again. Eric, maybe you could just retouch on the EEE program, and also then you can turn it back to me if you'd like, as far as DHCD's programs.
Now, Landon, you're reading my mind. Is that it's one of the reasons why programs like the Energy Efficiency Equity Program are so important, because working with community groups, go out there and get homes retrofitted so that they're not only more efficient and cost less to operate, they're healthier. And keeping those resources flowing to those organizations where we've worked with over a decade to build up capacity to be able to provide that assistance. And then the Solar Energy Equity Program also provides a great opportunity for them to be able to get solar on their homes, and for the participants in that program, they get that solar in that program at no cost. And so, it gives them an opportunity to be able to get solar in homes, further reducing their energy burden. And then we also are coordinating very closely with the Department of Housing and Community Development on their programs, but also a task force called the Green and Healthy Task Force, where they're looking at the total need to address reducing energy costs for limited income Marylanders. And so we're working on solutions with them as well.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Yeah, and I would just add that James, our division director for finance, who spoke earlier, did touch on that statutorily we must transfer at least 50% of RGGI proceeds for the purpose of home energy programs. That is administered through the Department of Human Services, but those are income restricted or income-based, income qualified programs for utility assistance that are funded through the CEF. And I've linked the Office of Home Energy Programs at the Department of Human Services in the chat.
So, Landon, whom would you suggest then that could perhaps provide, these actual bills for people? Is it the Public Service Commission that would do that, or which agency within the state could actually do a data mining of the zip codes to find out actually what people are paying compared to what is being reported?
I think that's going to be a Public Service Commission question. I do.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
And I believe we do have representation from the Public Service Commission on the phone, if they care to chime in. Amanda?
Hi, good afternoon. In regards to, at least from the commission perspective, we really only oversee the ratepayer funding for EUSP, which is also given to the Office of Home Energy Programs under DHS. And so, to be honest, they probably have the best data in terms of zip code. That's not necessarily, like we said, we oversee the ratepayer funding, but they have the holistic scope since they have multiple funding sources.
And Amanda, as far as rates by zip code, it's actually going to be, those rates are going to be assigned by the service territory of the controlling utility. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah. Each customer's rates would be determined by their utility in terms of, the various zip codes.
Our partners at the Federal Department of Energy also are tracking some of this, and they actually have a tool called the Low Income Energy Affordability Data Tool. It may be worth taking a look at. I'm going to drop a link to it in the chat. May not be as granular, but it does have some really good information on where the highest energy burdens are.
Thanks, Eric. And thank you again, Maurice. Any other comments or questions from board members?
No, thank you so much, sir.
Of course. Hearing no other comments or questions from board members and seeing no hands, we can move into the public comment portion of the meeting. We do ask that you keep your comments brief to 2 minutes or less. If anybody would like to make a public comment, simply just raise your hand using that function. Seeing no hands, if you, oh, here we are. Lynn, welcome to the call, and you have 2 minutes.
Hi, yes, thank you all, and happy holidays to everyone. This is my first CEF Advisory Board meeting, so I'm delighted to get an update on the CEF program. Full disclosure, I run a nonprofit community solar green bank, community solar focused green bank that operates statewide. And I may have missed it, but can you just expand a little bit upon your community solar program plans for FY25? Are those remaining the same? That, of course, for those who aren't familiar with community solar, is a great way to achieve energy affordability among renters through access to solar power that they otherwise wouldn't be able to get through the residential programs. Thank you.
Thank you. And it would be a very long meeting if I'd gone over 20 programs, but this is one of our favorites, indeed. Just thinking about the impacts. The community solar program continues for FY25. We also added an additional, what we call an area of interest 3, focused on getting solar on landfills and connecting that to community solar. And we're working very closely with our partners at the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the PSC on that. So we're expanding that program. It's got more funding in it this year, and we've got new features to it to hopefully expand its adoption.
Terrific. Thank you. And I would just suggest that the advisory board not think of community solar only in terms of large-scale land-based projects that can benefit low-income households, but also smaller rooftop and parking canopy projects that can be more catered to specific community needs and ownership and sort of economic development. Thanks so much.
Thank you for your comment. Seeing no further hands raised for the public comment portion of the meeting. With that, I would just extend our thanks once again for everyone for attending. If you'd like to reach out to the Maryland Energy Administration, there are instructions to do so through the website, which is energy.maryland.gov. And with that, I thank everyone for their time and attention today. That concludes the meeting.